All right, so like I said, today we're going to read John Henry. That's going to be our last tall tale for the year. And after that, after Friday, it is officially summer. You will have no more work due. And then also today is going to be our last ELA class. And I'll remind you again at the end because Wednesday, teachers have other stuff to do at school. So today's going to be the last time that we'll meet and go over stories together, okay?
Even for Miss Dunn?
Miss Dunn will have her class on Thursday, but the Wednesday class is canceled because we have to go and do all of our end of the year stuff at school.
Okay.
All right, so, and that's just for teachers. So, but I'll still post your questions on Google Classroom for you for that day, but we just won't meet in person, okay? And I'll send your parents a message on Dojo too. All right, so let's go ahead, let's start reading. So this week's tall tale is called John Henry, and it's by Mary Pope Osborne, and she might sound familiar because we've read one of her stories before. And John Henry is really cool, and if any of you had a chance to read the story yet, you know that John Henry has a very special quality about him that makes him important. So as you're reading, I want you to listen and see if you can figure out what that special character trait is, okay? All right, so just like in Pecos Go, we have some notes on the story that we'll read through before, and these notes kind of help you understand the background of the story. It says, after the Civil War, the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad Company laid hundreds of miles of railroad track through West Virginia. These new railroad routes opened up timber and coal lands and created new towns. When the tracks reached the Alleghenies, the railroad company hired more than 1,000 laborers to build tunnels through the mountains. The tunnels were created by blasting through the mountain shale, and shale is like a kind of rock, okay? This work was done by steel drivers, men who drilled steel spikes into the solid rock. Once the holes were drilled, they were packed with dynamite. And what does dynamite do? Who knows?
Explode?
Explodes, thank you. Since the early West Virginia tunnels had no safety regulations, these tunnel workers were exposed to an early death by the dynamite explosions, falling rock, and lethal dust created by the blast. So being a steel driver was a very dangerous job because you had all these things to deal with, right? Starting in the 1870s, a black steel driver named John Henry became the subject of many of the work songs sung by railroad tunnel gangs. Like most work songs, the John Henry songs consisted of a few short lines repeated several times with pauses in between for the stroke of a pick or hammer. Historians disagree about whether John Henry was based on a real man or not. Some believe that he can be traced to John Hardy, a true life subject of popular ballads who was also a superior steel driver. Others believe that a man named John Henry actually worked on the Big Bend Tunnel in the Alleghenies. The Alleghenies are a mountain range, okay? Whether John Henry was real or mythical, he was a strong, enduring character to many Southern black laborers. Later, when songs about him were recorded and played on the radio, he became known to the general public as well. Okay, so this is a drawing of John Henry, and you can see he's a pretty big guy, huh? All right, let's keep going. The night John Henry was born, the sky was as black as coal. Thunder rolled through the heavens, and the earth trembled. This boy is special, the preacher said, as folks gathered in the cabin by the river to see the new baby. In the dim lantern light, John Henry was the most powerful-looking baby folks had ever seen. His arms were as thick as stovepipes. He had great broad shoulders and strong muscles. As folks stared at him, he opened his eyes and smiled a smile that lit up the southern night. When John Henry raised his arm, folks gasped and brought their hands to their faces, for they saw that the mighty baby had been born with a hammer in his hand. Then they all began to laugh and felt happier than they had in a long, long time. Okay, so can someone tell me something that's interesting about John when he was a baby? What is it?
He had a hammer when he was born.
Yeah, he was born with a hammer in his hand. Can you think of another baby that's ever been born with a hammer in their hand?
No.
No, that's pretty unusual, huh?
Yeah.
Let's keep reading and see what else John gets into. John Henry grew up fast in a world that didn't let children stay children for long. Remember we talked about whenever immigrant children came over, they worked in the factories, right? So it's kind of like that. Before he was 6, he was carrying stones for the railroad gangs that were building tracks through the land of West Virginia. By the time he was 10, he was hammering steel from dawn till dark. No train whistle in America sang as loud as John Henry's mighty hammer. It rang like silver and shone like gold. It flashed up through the air, making a wide arc more than 19 feet, then crashed down, driving a steel spike 6 inches into solid rock. By the time he was a young man, John Henry was the best steel driver in the whole country. He could hammer for hours without missing a beat, so fast that his hammer moved like lightning. He had to keep a pail of water nearby to cool it down, and he wore out 2 handles a day. All the railroad bosses wanted John Henry to work for them. When the Chesapeake and Ohio started making a tunnel in the Allegheny Mountains, they asked him to lead their force of steel driving men. Soon, John Henry was whistling and singing in the early summer light as he walked to work in the mountain tunnel. Beside him was his wife Lucy, with eyes as bright as stars and hair as wavy as the sea. Lucy was a steel driver herself. At noontime, she drove the spikes while John Henry sat with their little boy, Johnny, in the sunny mountain grass and ate his lunch of ham hocks and biscuits with molasses. Okay, so remember a while back we had talked about a simile, and a simile compares 2 different things using the words like or as. So let's look at this sentence right here. It says, beside him was his wife Lucy, with eyes as bright as stars. What 2 things are we comparing right here?
Can you say it one more time?
Yep. Okay, it says we're looking for 2 things that we're comparing. So I'm going to read the sentence again, and I want someone to tell me what 2 things are being compared in this sentence, okay? Beside him was his wife Lucy, with eyes as bright as stars. What are we comparing?
Eyes and
Yeah, eyes and what?
stars.
Very good. So that's a simile right there because it's saying her eyes are as bright as stars. Okay, let's keep going. And hair as wavy as the sea. What are we comparing here?
Hair and sea.
Yep, very good. It's saying her hair was just as wavy as the sea. So remember, those are called similes, right?
Right.
Good job. Lifting Johnny high into the air, John Henry shouted, someday you're going to be a steel driving man like your daddy. July of that summer was the hottest month on record in West Virginia. Working in the terrible heat, many of the steel drivers collapsed by noon. But John Henry tried to protect their jobs by picking up their hammers and doing their work too. One week, he did his own work and the work of 4 others as well. He hammered day and night, barely stopping for meals. John sounds pretty strong, right? When the men tried to thank John Henry, he just smiled and said, a man ain't nothing but a man. He's just got to do his best. August was hotter than July. We know that's true here, huh? One day, as the men labored in the white light of the afternoon sun, a city salesman drove up to the work site. Come see, everybody, he shouted. Looky here at this incredible invention. A steam drill that could drill holes faster than a dozen men working together. Oh, I don't know about that, said the railroad boss, rubbing his grizzly jaw. I got the best steel driver in the country. His name is John Henry, and he can beat 24 men working together. That's impossible, the salesman said. But if you can prove your hand driller is faster than my steam driller, I'll give you this machine for free. The boss called to John Henry. This fellow doubts which of you can drill faster. How about a big contest? As John Henry stared at the steam drill, he saw a picture of the future. He saw machines taking over the jobs of the country's finest workers. He saw himself and his friends out of work and begging beside the road. He saw men robbed of their dignity and robbed of their families. I'd rather die with a hammer in my hand than let this steam drill run me down, he yelled back, and his boss and friends all cheered. That contest will be the death of you, John Henry, Lucy said later. You got a wife and child, and if anything happens to you, we won't ever smile again. John Henry just lifted Johnny into the air and said, honey, a man ain't nothing but a man's always got to do his best. And tomorrow, I'm going to take my hammer and drive that steel faster than any machine. So what is John going to go up into a contest against? What kind of machine? Anybody remember what it was called?
Steam drill.
Very good, the steam drill, okay? So who do you think is going to win, John or the steam drill?
John.
John.
John, all right, we have faith in John. Let's see. All right. All right, whoever's got music on, mute yourself. Thank you. Lucy put on her best blue dress, and folks came from all over Ohio, Virginia, and Kentucky. They came from the countryside, and they came from the cities. At 6:30 in the morning, John Henry and the salesman with the steam-powered drill stood side by side. Early as it was, the sun was burning hot. There was no breeze. Sweat poured down people's faces like water down a hill. As the onlookers gathered around the contestants, Little Bill, the worker who loved John Henry the best, said, there ain't a steam drill anywheres that can beat that man. But the city folks, who had staked their hopes on the future of machines, said, he won't beat the drill unless the rocks in the mountain turn to gold. There's John, and you can kind of see the steam drill back here. No siree, said Jimmy, John Henry's oldest friend. Before that drill wins, he'll make the mountain fall. Bang, the race was on. As the steam drill salesman turned on the steam, John Henry kissed the smooth handle of his hammer. At first, the steam drill drove the steel twice as fast as John Henry did. But then he grabbed another hammer and started working with a hammer in each hand. He went faster and faster, striking blow after blow as he tunneled into the mountain. That's a mighty man, a city man shouted, but he'll weaken when the hardest rock is found. Not John Henry. Just listen to that steel ring, Little Bill said. I believe these mountains are caving in, said the city man. No, they're not. That's his hammers you hear in the wind, Jimmy cried. Inside the dark tunnel, where the yellow dust and heat were so thick that most men would have smothered, John Henry hammered faster and faster. As clouds of stone dust billowed from the mouth of the tunnel, the crowd shouted and screamed. John Henry's hammers sounded like 10,000 hammers. Lucy, Little Bill, and Jimmy cheered when the steam drill was dragged out of the tunnel. Sputtering and spewing, it had broken down. Come back now, John Henry, Lucy shouted. But John Henry kept hammering faster than any man had ever hammered before, hammering against all the machines of the future. As his hammer glowed white hot, he tunneled deeper into the darkness, driving the steel so hard that the mighty ribs of his body began to crack and his insides broke in two and his great heart burst. So did John Henry beat the steam engine, the steam driller? Did he beat it?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right, so there's John. Still hammering, and look, he's got a hammer in this hand and a hammer in that hand, just like it said. All right, so John did beat the steam drill, and if you scroll down here, you guys have 12 questions about John Henry. And what I did on Edulastic, if anybody's already looked, is I broke them up into 3 different sets. So the first set has 4, the second set has 4, and the last set has 4. So you'll have 4 questions each day, okay? And then at the end, on Thursday, you will have a writing task to do, okay?
Okay.
So I broke those up for you, and I am going to stop. Let's see, I'll keep my screen on. So if you don't remember, I posted the John Henry questions here. And then I also posted a social studies lesson on Ellis Island. And remember, we talked about immigrants coming into America and how they had to work really hard at different jobs, just like John Henry did. That kind of goes along with that. And you'll remember Ellis Island is where a lot of immigrants came into America whenever they first arrived here, okay? And then we did our field trip Friday. So did anyone do the field trip Friday?
I looked at it.
Yeah, anybody?
I did.
You did it? How was it?
It was good.
It was good? Where did it go? Where did it take you?
Mars.
Mars. Did anybody learn anything cool about Mars? What does Mars look like?
It was like.
What color is it? Nobody remembers? What is it? I heard somebody say it, red. Mars is red. And does it have a lot of trees or is it full of rocks?
Full of rocks.
Full of rocks. Very good, very good. All right, well, I have another field trip for this Friday, so it'll be our last one, okay? So just hang out till Friday. I think you'll really like this place. It's really interesting, somewhere we've learned about before. And then just also remember, like, this is going to be our last week of online classes. We won't have a meeting on Wednesday, okay? And I'll message your parents with that information so that they'll know you don't have to be here for that. Just go on and do your online lessons for me, okay?
Miss Coletti.
Yes.
On one of my assignments on Edulastic, I have finished it, but it's still saying in progress.
Okay. That just means I haven't graded it yet. Do you remember which one it was?
No.
Okay, I'll look it up because I haven't got to grade all of them yet. But if you want to, you can send me a message on Google Classroom or you can get your mom to send me a message on Dojo to see which one it is, and I can double check it for you. Because sometimes if you don't push submit on Edulastic, it won't let me grade it. You have to click submit.
Oh.
Yeah, so make sure you click that submit button, okay? All right, does anybody else have any questions or anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, this will be our last week.
So-
I really miss everyone, and we'll try to do, we'll do like a virtual end of year celebration or something maybe this week or next week so that we can all say goodbye to each other until we see each other again in August, okay?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, well, love you guys, I miss you guys, and I look forward to giving you all big hugs very soon, okay?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, bye y'all.
Yeah.
Bye.
I miss